Hey everybody, welcome back to Tech Tip Tuesday. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you guys are. Thanks again for joining us. Today, Howard has a special guest. Gabe from the DevOps team is going to be discussing with Howard antivirus and the cloud. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce both Howard Young and Gabe Lopez today.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm really pleased to have Gabe online here. Gabe Lopez is one of our DevOps engineers, and you may have interacted with him either through email or through a webinar type of onboarding. So, Gabe, why don't you go ahead and say hello, and we'll get started on what you developed here.
Hello, hello. Yes, Gabe Lopez, DevOps engineer. I'm coming off of the operations floor, and yeah, I'm here to help talk a little bit about the Clam antivirus solution that Zadara has put together for our customers. So, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the big questions we get all the time is that, do we have antivirus software, and do you need antivirus software in the cloud? A lot of that comes from is, if you're running like a web app or any type of SaaS, uh, you're usually not going to run into antivirus. Those are like a closed system, but you need to be aware that you need to secure any type of security holes and any kind of SQL injections that could introduce any type of viruses into your system. Now, Gabe, you mentioned to me the other day you run it on Apache. There's a couple of good utilities and was mod security and things like that.
Oh yes, back when I was administering websites, we'd utilize different types of tools, and mod security was definitely a good one. We kind of used that in conjunction with the Clam antivirus solution, and also Fail to Ban, which is a great log monitoring tool. To it works in conjunction with your firewall to stop repeated attacks or attempts, depending on what kind of rules that you set. So yeah, these are sort of things that we used to button up our web servers with.
Yeah, those. I forgot about the fail to ban. I got to look that up again. That sounds pretty cool the way that works. Um, and well, a lot of our customers now they're moving everything off-site or on-site into like desktop, and that's where we come into play, where we want to do some antivirus and run antivirus in the cloud, either as a Linux user or even as a Windows user. So I put together a couple options that you have available today, and uh, for antivirus, if you think about it, it's actually kind of slow if you do it over the network, and that's been a problem for 15, 20 years now, where you have to read the files and um, over the network and just back and forth, and it's really slow. And I believe NetApp was one of the first vendors that actually came out with a protocol called ICAP. And so what ICAP does is it basically runs a little web service on the array, and then what happens is when the array detects a file change or anything that's written new, it sends a notification back to the server that registered the callback. And then the callback, what happens is it goes and does the antivirus on the array, on the files that changed. Now the problem with that is it's still over the network, and also in the cloud there's very little support or no support. I don't think there's anything that I've seen out there that has ICAP in like AWS or Azure. But if you on the enterprise, this is supported by most enterprise arrays. So what Gabe did is he sort of took the concept of ICAP and then did a notification within a Docker shell. So this is very fast, so because it's going to bypass the network, and you get a local disk scan. So what we do is we go ahead and do the scan directly on the folders or shares when something changes. So to do that, what we did is he put together a real-time scanning Docker container which utilizes the ClamAV. So ClamAV basically is a public source. It's an antivirus engine that detects Trojans, viruses, malware. It scans all the common file formats like PDFs and work folders and work documents, so XLS and Word documents. Also zip files. It supports zip files and all that. Now, what he did is he did go ahead and he did embed it right in a container. So you can pull that right out of Docker today using our Zadara ClamAV image, and then you can upload it to the VPSA. So Gabe, a couple things you added that I thought are pretty unique and clever. Why don't you go ahead and talk about like the proxy and command line? What's available there?
Well, you know, one of the hurdles we had to overcome with the VPSA in general, and for the sake of the security of the VPSA, is the fact that we needed to get access to the ClamAV updates. So you have all of your antivirus definitions that you need to pull from the Clam servers, which is called your fresh Clam service that runs in the background. Because of the fact that you know, we don't have direct public IP or direct internet access to the Docker containers, what we needed to do is to pull that through another source. So what we did is we set up our EC2 proxies. Like any customer can do this in their VPC, just in the same way that they do their backup to S3 configuration. And in fact, you can share the same proxy. We set up the proxies to allow ClamAV to pull its virus definitions from the internet through the EC2 instance. And in this little sketch diagram here, you can see in the top left corner there, you see the EC2 instance running the Squid proxy with the internet, and it's pushing those. It's allowing the fresh Clam to pull those definitions into the container, and then it updates the ClamD daemon, and so that the ClamD has the most up-to-date definitions for virus scans.
So what's this Clam scan do? It's looks like iNotify is driving all the files through this ClamD scan.
Mm-hmm. So in the Clam antivirus configuration, the way that it works in sort of an optimized form, there's two versions. You have a basic Clam scan, which will load all the definitions into memory, do the scan on the file, and then load everything out. Or you can use a ClamD daemon, which just runs in the background with all the definitions preloaded. And this is a performance optimization thing. And so the ClamD scan will take a file and feed it to the daemon for scanning. And then the daemon will decide if it is safe or needs to be quarantined, and will log the activity as well. So iNotify will watch the file system for any kind of changes, and if any kind of change occurs, then what will happen is it'll take that file or group of files, and it'll feed it to the ClamD scanner. The ClamD scan will feed it to the daemon. The daemon will check if there's any kind of issues, and then of course apply the proper actions as needed. Everything is logged, so every activity of every file change is logged, and any viruses that are detected are also logged as well.
So this is the iNotify sort of behaves like the ICAP, but internally, instead of going out to like an antivirus program on a server, it just runs locally. So is there a way for this is just for changes? What about existing files? How do you do a scan with that?
So this is where the command line or CLI scan comes in, and what we did is in the Docker container that we built, we put together an SSH server on board, so you can actually SSH into the Docker container, and on top of just administratively looking at what's going on under the hood, you also have the ability to run the ClamD scan or Clam scan against the shared file system as well directly, so that you can actually run a pre-scan against everything before you let iNotify take over and monitor for changes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's real exciting. The let me bring up my VPSA if I can here. The on my VPSA, I preloaded a couple things, and let's go over a couple parameters. So I already loaded the ClamAV. So here's a repository Zadara/ClamAV, and of course that's available on Docker Hub as a public repository, so you can pull that up anytime. And so once you have that, you have to have a container to run that. So I already started this up, and let's look at some of the environment variables here. If I get the right size here, so everyone can see. So so these are the basic variables you provided. So you can give it like a proxy server and a proxy port. And this is, you said this proxy will work for backup to S3 and also for antivirus, correct?
That's correct. They can be shared. Mm-hmm.
And then the update frequency, what is this, in hours or number of times per day, or?
Yes, it's actually the number of times per day for the antivirus definition updates via fresh clam daemon. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So it's just it just goes and scans and sees something new, so you can get the latest updates at the every hour if you wanted to. For example, if you did like
Yes.
put a 24 in. Yeah.
Yes, and actually by default it runs 24. So if you left that empty, then that would be.
Okay, so you don't need to define that, right?
Nope. That is an optional. That is also actually optional.
Okay, and then we have a scan, quarantine, and a log path. So on the scan path, now did I do something wrong? I wanted to do multiple volumes here. How do we do multiple volumes or shares?
Sure. With the scan path, it's actually just space delimited. So all you really do is just when you create the variable or create the container and define the scan path variable, you can just list multiple directories or multiple shares at the highest level, or if you'd like. So you can do /mount, /ownCloud, /mount, ownCloud, or space /mount, ownCloud2. So the space is really your delimiter, and you can just list multiple directories there. And I've done 100 directories in there. And
100 directories. That's pretty cool. That's that's sort of pushing the limits of number of shares on the VPS. At least for the so you did test it to the extreme. That's awesome. So and then we have the quarantine. That's where if a ClamAV finds a virus, it copies the file over there and logs it in here.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. And the logs will be very verbose, so it'll tell you every file that notices the changes and it goes to the scanner. And those types of things you can monitor with your own log monitoring tools, and of course alert you in the case that something's found, and the virus is moved to the quarantine folder. So so you'll know where it's been moved to and what actions to take against that.
Okay, and then there's no entry point; it just starts up automatically. That's pretty awesome. The let's see, arguments and no arguments, and then ports. So just we looks like I exposed port 22, which is mapped to SSH. So you use SSH into that port. So, and then that's how you get to the command line. So with the with all of our default SSH, the user is always going to be root, and the initial password is going to be Zadara, and that's all lowercase, Zadara, and we highly recommend you to change that right after you go ahead and log in, and if you forget it, you can just tear this down and start it back up. It's pretty easy to recreate that. So are there any other requirements? So this one here, I have like engine 200 or 202 or something like that. So is that enough, or do we have to upgrade to larger engines?
Well, yeah, with the Zadara container service, it does require some memory to load all those virus definitions in and load them into the ClamD daemon. So they need to be, it needs enough space to run. And yes, we need to be at least with the 2 gigabyte, I think it's the the 04 engine on ZCS, the container
Okay,
services.
04.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that would give 2 CPUs per controller and what, 2 mem? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's plenty. So you can go larger if you have a larger data set and more volumes if it was required. So
correct. And you can run multiple containers with ClamAV in parallel. That's of course the magic of Docker in general. So yeah, if you want to do something like that, you just have to make sure that you have enough space to do that, or enough engine power to do that, because it does have a sort of a base requirement. ClamAV in general, I think of 500 meg or 500 meg plus, just to get all the definitions running into the daemon properly. So,
and this works for sys too, correct? So
correct.
Awesome.
All the shares are mounted against the Docker container, and then the program operates against the mounted shares that are the same shares that are used in your network. So,
yeah, that's fantastic. It's really exciting to have antivirus on here. So, on I don't know if there's any canned question, or not canned questions, but any questions from the audience?
I didn't see any come in. So if anyone has any questions, please submit them now, or Howard's always available via email, howard@zadarastorage.com. There's also where he has a few other resources here on GitHub under the Docker files URL. You can find out more information, and then on the ClamAV.net website. Also, for those of you who haven't attended a previous Tech Tip Tuesday, first of all, thanks for joining. We hope we see you again soon. But we're also running a promotion right now where if you submit a topic for Howard and or Gabe or any of our other special guests, we will, if we choose your topic, we'll send you a $25 gift card to Starbucks as a thank you that you can enjoy during the Tech Tip Tuesday. So we've got a few in the queue. So if you have submitted, we're still reviewing, we're still planning out the next few weeks. So you may see it come through. But if you haven't submitted and you have a question, it's a great time to take advantage of the promotion. So you can go to the bit.ly Ask Me Anything and just submit your topic. And if we like it, we'll include it in a future Tech Tip Tuesday. So it looks like no questions today, but thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next week.